Explorers, welcome back to the Starfield Lorecast. On today's episode, we are digging into everything we know about Starfield's Tatooine, Akila City. That's what I'm going to call it from now on, Dave. Dave's co-pilot. I'm a co-pilot. Welcome to the Starfield Lorecast. Dave, how's it going?
It's going well. We're going to Akila, the Electric City.
Boogie, woogie, woogie. All right, let's get into it. Where is Akila City?
Yeah, so Akila City is in the Cheyenne system. I think I'm saying that right. You may also say Cheyenne if you're looking at direct pronunciation of what it says.
Cheyenne system.
It's like a fine wine. On the galaxy map, they actually show where this is in one of the trailers, and it's actually close to the Alpha Centauri system, which is where New Atlantis is. We talked about that in a previous episode.
Right.
The other interesting thing is when you go to look at like who controls what in space, there's a Crimson Raider logo kind of over that system. So in that system of planets, wherever, the Crimson Raiders have some foothold there, as well as the capital city of the Freestar Collective.
So it sounds like this sounds like a Wild West situation, right? Like they're the Raider gang and this is the settled city and the law's not going to put up with those outlaws out there on the edges of their planet or whatever, right?
Yes. And we'll reference this, I think, a good bit. This feels very Fallout New Vegas-y of the Rangers and
Caesar's Legion. Yeah, it definitely sounds like that. Well, here, tell you what, before we get even deeper into this, let's take a quick look at what they said specifically on the Starfield Direct. It's only about a 30-second clip, but this is what we have from that in order to kind of refresh everyone's minds on this.
On the United Colonies reach, you might find yourself in a much more wild and independent coalition of star systems. This is Freestar Collective space. The capital of the Freestar Collective is Akila City.
The Stone Root Inn is an Akila City fixture.
A ranger relies on judgment and intuition to do what's best for the people.
All right, so it's very Wild West. It's got a little bit of New Vegas in it. It's very space cowboy. Dave, I put up on the Starfield Lorecast Twitter account, which if you're not following, follow us. We've got lots of fun information on there, lots of fun polls. I've been putting up polls every day, and I asked people if they would rather be called a space cowboy or a NASA punk. And what do you think the answers were? I don't know if you've looked at this recently, but
I think a space cowboy is like 70% and NASA punk is like 30%. That's what I'm thinking.
So 70-30?
Yeah, 70-30.
For space cowboy?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Here, I'm pulling it up right now. It turns out that, holy moly, it's tied. 45.5% each. The third one was just see the results. And some people just don't vote. They just want to see the results. Right. So like 9.1% on here says see results. But it's absolutely tied. Space Cowboy and NASA Punk. I believe 21 hours left on the poll. So if you're watching this right now or getting this very, very soon, go to the Starfield Lorecast Twitter account and chime in because one of those has to win out. I mean, they both sound pretty cool. Like, I like my punk rock as good as any kid who grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? Like, sure. But Space Cowboy, some people call me a Space Cowboy. That sounds awesome, too.
I agree. I think that I'm surprised, actually, that here's the thing. I think people want to be a little punkish. People want to be a little against the system, but also in the system.
Cowboys are part of the system. Punks are against the system. Which one are you? But anyway, let's get back to Akila City. So you mentioned the Freestar Collective. What do we know about the Freestar Collective?
So the Freestar Collective is actually, it seems like, based on some speculation that I've done from looking at trailers and different stuff, it is a confederation. So the New Atlantis and all of that, like those people, I forget what they're called, the
Allied the words pop. I'm sure somebody's yelling at their iPhone there now or something.
The Star Trek Alliance, they're all federated together, so they're under one thing. But the Freestar Collective and their confederation are all kind
United
of
Colonies. United Colonies.
The United Colonies, yes.
That's it. These words are so general. like United Colony, like the conjoined place locations. Like that could have been the name of it.
Right. And I get them confused with, what is it? Doom has like the UC, which is, I think, United Colonies.
It definitely means United Colonies. Yeah, sure.
So this is a confederation, which means there's like a loose form of kind of government, like just a general, like, hey, here's the rules that we follow. Here's if you want to be a part of us. Here's like this loose format, but pretty much everyone's free to do what they want.
Right. There's no federal government. There's no overseeing group. It's all just individual governments agreeing to play nice together.
Right, exactly. Which includes Neon, which is drastically different. We'll talk about that in a later episode.
Yeah,
but that's drastically different from what
feels more
Akila City
cyberpunk.
Is.
Yeah,
but it's Freestar Collective still, which you would think that a faction or something. They're all going to be the same. Well, it's like that may work for the United Colonies, but for Freestar Collective, you're going to have a little bit of variation, I think.
Yeah. So we're going to Space Cowboy Land, Tatooine. In Starfield, and then we're going to visit other places that look more like cyberpunk or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Freestar Collective, and there's a lot of diversity among the different like cities and planets and nations who are under that banner. So let's talk specifically about Akila City. How does it stand out? How does it look different? What does it seem to function like?
So from that basic trailer, there is a Wild West theme. It seems like you say Tatooine, like the buildings are all kind of shambled together. It seems there's kind of like a nice like tan Breaking Bad filter over everything.
Mm-hmm. Everything looks like it's in the Wild West because it's on the edge of a desert or something, right?
People are wearing dusters. Everyone has a cowboy hat. Like everyone seems to exist in this like sci-fi Wild West town, which is really what it looks like from the trailers. A number of different trading places. There's a saloon that we'll talk about, even though it's not called a saloon. It looks a lot like that. There is clearly a theme that this is the Wild West. The interesting part that I kind of want to start with, though, is that in some of the trailers, it seems that pirates seem to occupy some of the structures in Akila City.
Oh, so some of the buildings are like pirate run locations.
The Crimson Raiders. Yeah. Crimson Raiders are actually in these buildings. Now, I'm assuming that it's, Freestar Collective. So it's like, hey, everybody keeps to themselves. But like you walk through a Wild West town, you might see like a good for nothing scallywag. I don't know what that's pirates. I don't know. A good for nothing scallywag is over there and you don't mess with them or they'll mess with you.
Right. Like this is the saloon all the good people go to. But if you want to visit old Gunface's bar over there, be my guest. But that's where all them gangers hang out. Yeah,
that's where all them good for nothing, no goody two shoes are. The
no goody two shoes,
no goody two shoes, no sir. So this is probably the first place that we'll run into friendly Crimson Raiders. I bet you, if we're talking about like from the launch of, it seems like the first place you're going after your accident is New Atlantis. Next place you probably go is Akila City.
Right. This is like if you're following the main quest line, right? Like
path, yeah.
Like you go to Riverwood or whatever that place is in Skyrim, and then you go over to Whiterun because it's just how the quests are going to take you.
Right there. Yeah. Right. And if you want the dragon shouts, you got to do the little thing for a bit.
Yep.
That's kind of what I imagine is this is kind of on that main path. But this is where you'll run into I say friendly pirates, but they won't attack you. Just neutral pirates, probably.
Well, they're probably in the city boundaries, and so there's probably laws about just shooting people outright. And so my guess is you walk into their bar or whatever, your location, and they give you kind of this shakedown, like, who are you? Get out of here, like that kind of thing. But they're not openly going to shoot you right then. Now, maybe you could coax them into that through some dialogue or maybe just running and gunning or whatever. But because you're in the city, there's guards nearby or whatever, they're all just kind of like getting along with each other. That would be my guess. Yeah.
Kind of moving on from there's this hidden detail in the trailer on one of the signs that talks about Co Plaza. That's that first shot that they show of down that street. That's Co Plaza. And another actually member of Constellation is named Sam Coe. He's kind of a Wild West type. And it seems like that he is also from Akila City. So if we kind of put those two together, that means that not only is, this is related to Sam Coe, but he has the Coe family is so great that they have this plaza kind of named after them. So I'm curious if this is kind of setting up this guy that's a part of Constellation, that's, your main group. Is this guy like the son of a famous cowboy or something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this also plays into the whole Wild West thing. Like, old Wilson bought up, 1/3 of the main causeway of the city, and he owns all these buildings over here. And you know what? He's been so good in our city, but his grandson, Joey Wilson, he sure is a problem. Like everybody knows the name of like the Wilsons because they're like the wealthy people in town or whatever.
Right. Little Sammy went off and he wanted to be part of them space pilots, and I just don't understand why.
I don't know. We got a good deal here for farming up these space cows.
They should hire us for NPCs sometimes. The other piece of that, it goes on to talk about how you can see it in a picture that Sam Coe is actually like a good pilot and is a rifleman. You can see some of the skills. It's one of the like base like NPCs that you can have join your party. Yeah,
4 stars for piloting, 3 stars for rifle certification, 2 for payloads, and 1 for geology. So
I mean, he's 1-star rock and roll genius. That's a geology joke.
Rock and roll.
Get it? Yeah. The other interesting piece about Coe Plaza is not only the name, but at the end of it, there seems to be this brass statue. And the only reason it stands out to me is because it's green. So, brass, like the Statue of Liberty or, other brass statues, over time, they kind of degrade and turn this like mintish greenish color.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if that is a member of the Coe family that kind of founded the city.
That's all Grandpappy Coe.
That's old Grandpappy Coe down there at Grandpappy's statue.
Yeah, Grandpappy Coe's still hanging out in the town center on a statue. We go and visit him every Sunday after church.
I drop a penny by his grave. I tell him good luck, son.
I always put a heads up, though, because, he needs that good luck because we ain't sure if he's really in heaven or not. He wasn't the most godly man, if you know what I mean.
He was definitely, now he's a brass god, and that will come and destroy all of Tamriel. Anyways.
Oh God! Is that a new Medium joke?
This it is.
Oh man.
I just think that's interesting. Like some of these details, like you can tell there's a history here, and there's connections that you can already make. So you see Sam Coe, part of Constellation. Oh, Coe Plaza. That's got to be his family if he's from Akila City. Sure. And then you see the statues in it. It's like, okay, that's probably the guy that founded it. And they wouldn't put somebody not named Coe in Coe Plaza with a big statue.
Yeah, it all kind of tracks. It all tracks. Now, maybe there's more complexity to it than that. Maybe there's a few different like families that have founded the town, and there's different individuals. But based on what we have so far, it seems like this is the most likely explanation.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out later on of kind of what the city, how families interact with it. Like, are there like some great families? Are there? This is from this clan and I'm from this clan. And so we kind of like each other, but this other one, we don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Or is there like a Nazim who's like, oh, you finally made it over to the Star Cloud district.
Speaking of fanciness and overall a highfalutenness, they talk about the Stone Route Inn, and they say it's like a fixture of the city. Honestly, it looks like one of the nicest saloons, like at the end of Red Dead Redemption, when you go to the fancy city and you go into the saloon.
Yeah.
It looks really nice. But there's some like alien bone decoration along the walls. I'm assuming they're aliens. I'm not assuming they're.
Well, they may be domestic creatures to this planet, which would be aliens to us as Earthlings. To us. Right.
Right. They show off some of like the bar and the barman like serving drinks and people just kind of sitting around. I'm curious. You think you could? I mean, do you think you could start a saloon brawl? Like go in there.
Oh man. Yeah, you punch one guy and he bumps into somebody else, and then he's like, "Hey!" and then he punches the same guy you punched, and then all of a sudden a brawl starts out because that's how it always starts in the movies.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I don't see why not. Get your bounty up a little bit.
I think this is one of the things that we need to do when this game comes out, Dave, is that we need to record our gameplay or stream it or whatever with the specific goal of starting a bar brawl at a saloon.
I like that a whole lot. The other piece of information that I saw is on at the beginning of the trailer, they're kind of showing these like towers with stacked globes and a little radar dish, but along them you can tell that there's these like industrial agricultural watering stations, and they're growing plants underneath these in this kind of desert. And there's like this Vasco like robot that's like moving his arms about and being like, hello, I'm a guy that works here. He doesn't say that. He just moves his arms. But
hello, guy who works here, out of my way.
I would like that to be my official title at my place of work, is just guy who works here.
That's his name, like his actual name. There's Vasco, there's guy who works here.
Yes. Yeah. So it seems like that there is some like terraforming happening. Because I mean, this seems like a very dry planet, like not necessarily a desert planet in like it's vast sand, but like how it is in the West, where it's like just a dry, rocky, craggy kind of place.
Well, I would imagine that these machines are probably drawing moisture out of the air and collecting the water and then repurposing the water for the plants. Something like that. So deep pull here. I was watching a video about the special effects for movies, and they talked about animating the little mouse you see in the newest Dune movie, the first new remake of Dune. There's a little desert mouse, and the desert mouse, you can see what looks like sweat on its big ears. It's not sweat. It's moisture that it's collected out of the air that the ears have actually like removed from the air, and it's then drawing the moisture down into its mouth, and that's how it gathers moisture, is through its ears. Amazing to think about, but that like you could totally design a machine that does something very similar, right? Changes the temperature on some sort of fabric or material that then the moisture consolidates on, and then it draws the moisture into these vats, which it uses for crops so people can eat.
Right. Yeah. The other thing, just general question, after taking in all this information of like what the city is, where all that stuff is, what do you think trade is like there? Because this all seems very focused on like a mercantile business. What do you think that's like?
Yeah, I have a feeling it's pretty loose. It basically is functioning like a Wild West town, right? So there's going to be some form of currency. There's going to be something that people are using. There's creds or cred chits or whatever that we talked about before. Mm-hmm. But I have a feeling a lot of the trade is actually bartering. It's a lot of people saying things like, well, I brought my cows to town. I'll give you one of my cows if you can give me 37 turnips, because that's what we're eating all winter. Sorry, Margaret, we're doing turnips again. That's all we can afford. Margaret hates turnips.
Margaret just hates those turnips. Yeah. The economy of it seems like that it's very free market. It's very like laissez-faire.
Yeah.
You can set up shop anywhere, come get your stuff, because it all seems kind of like cobbled together a little bit, much like, this is very inspired by Western, space Westerns. Star Wars is a space Western. Everything in Star Wars, in the original movies all looks cobbled together, and like we just threw up this outpost on this planet and here it is.
Right.
We're not gonna mention the early ones because that's when everything's real shiny.
Yeah, it moves to the other parts of the galaxy where everything's all like, you have entire planets that are cities and all of that stuff. But like most of the Tatooine stuff, and especially the whole like Han Solo, space outlaw kind of thing going on, right? So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that here. I think we'll probably also see something like roving bands of traders, like Khajiit in the Elder Scrolls. You'll probably have some ships that are coming and going from the city, and some of them are traders. Obviously that's going to be a way for somebody to make a living in the galaxy. They're growing some great turnips here in Akila City. I better fly them over to, wherever in order to trade them, because everybody loves those turnips except for Margaret.
Except for Margaret, she does not like those turnips. We tried to get her to talk to a guy that works here to grow a different one, but he just said, no, I'm good. I'm just a guy who works here.
I'm just a guy who works here growing plants out of my way. That's all he says. All right. So do you have any other thoughts about the economy and how this might work?
I just think it's going to be drastically different from how New Atlantis is. Everything seems very organized. Everything seems very like, for New Atlantis, everything's very organized. Everything's very oh, it's under this like different system. I'm curious if like a different kind of currency or something will be used for that. Like it brings up some questions, because it seems like the Freestar Collective and the United Colonies are the two predominant systems, that even the Crimson Raiders fall under that Freestar Collective because that's who they're going to be like bartering with.
Right. This also raises the question of, is there an actual simulated economy happening in the game? I don't think we've heard anybody talk about that. But if you look at a lot of the inspiration, if you go back to like the 80s and 90s, a lot of those old RPGs, a lot of those old Sims that would have like trading in space and all of this stuff would often try to simulate economies. You buy and sell something from one place to another place, and it affects the costs of other stuff. Certain kinds of locations have more of something, so it's going to cost less, or, you know, different amounts of demand or whatever. And if that's the case, can you affect those economies? Like, can you buy up all the turnips every week from Akila City and take them over to New Atlantis and reduce the costs of turnips in New Atlantis because you're importing so many? Like, I'm not sure we're going to see something on that level, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the prices for certain kinds of things be different in different locations depending on the availability of those things. So
I think you're right, because they've shown off mining in the game and how resource collection, extraction, that kind of stuff works. And it makes sense that, like, you know, on the planet that's like, hello, welcome to the diamond planet where everything's diamonds here. If you try to sell diamonds there, they're going to be like, okay, great. Like, that's just going to be a little bit of money.
They're worth 2 cents each. Yeah.
Right. If you go over to the, hello, we do engravings here on this planet. This is the planet of engravings. They're going to want the diamonds, you know?
Right. So they're going to pay more for them. So you're going to be transporting them back and forth, which is a legitimate way to play a space game as a trader, right? Mm-hmm. Go, buy low, sell high. Go, buy the turnips for real cheap at Akila and then take them everywhere else.
And they showed off a little bit of that contraband scanning system that they had with New Atlantis, getting into United Colonies airspace. They scanned them for any contraband. So I imagine that with the Freestar Collective, that's going to be a little bit looser of getting that contraband. That was one of my favorite updates for No Man's Sky, is when they added the pirate settlements that you could go to and get a bunch of you could get a bunch of like pirate goods pretty cheap and sell them for a lot of money, but it was dangerous when you were warping of like what ship was near you, who was going to scan you, what was going to happen with that.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll see some complexity with that, but I don't expect a fully simulated economy system because of just how much time that takes to do. And it's a single player game. So you're the only one really affecting the economy, rather than something like EVE Online or something huge with lots of different people, and the economy has to keep up. Like MMO live world economies make a lot more sense than something like this. But I'm sure we'll see what feels like an accurate thing. Like guns are more available here because they make guns, or spaceship parts are more available over here because that's where they're manufacturing them, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
We like to use these manufacturers for guns, and over here they like to use them. So we're going to want to buy your sleek, nice things over here in Trashville.
Right. So another thing that we see in the city, and especially with a guy like Sam Coe, is somebody who looks kind of like a ranger. We're getting some like NCR vibes, leather jacket, hat, gun, belts, like holster belts. You can always tell a holster belt because it doesn't go straight across your waist. It hangs down on your hip,
Right. So they talk about specifically about Rangers, but behind the guy that's talking about them, it seems like there's a sign that says Freestar Rangers. And in the trailer, they say a ranger relies on judgment and intuition to do what's best for the people.
So these are the lawmen. These are like the lawmen of the Wild West settlement. Right.
Yeah. And if you look back on American history, as far as like what marshals were doing, like they couldn't send police out to every single settlement out in the West because they just didn't have the resources. Like they had the army that was out there that was trying to, fight the native people, which was not that great.
But problematic.
Problematic. Uh-huh. But they had this group of marshals that were there, essentially running the law for towns. And so the towns would be like, hey, like evil Jimmy Dickens came and he shot up 24 people and stole all their rice. And he's like, I'll pay you $1,000, and so you have some people that'll go out and be like, okay, well, I want to go get evil Jimmy Dickens and get that. Or you have the marshals that come out that say, okay, we're going to manage this operation and we'll put the bounty out there, we'll do the thing, and you come back and get it. Or I'll personally go out there, arrest them, and take them into the law system that we have.
Right. So 2 thoughts on that. It's kind of like The Witcher coming to town and somebody's like, there are neckers in my field. Help. Yes. Help, Witcher. I only got this bag of 2 gold pennies. Those aren't really gold. Well, they're pennies. All right, I'll do it. So there's that. There's that kind of thing going on, it seems like, right? But then the other question I have is if anybody listening to or watching this show actually uses any of the character names that we come up with as their character. What was it? Little evil Jimmy Dickens?
Yeah, evil Jimmy Dickens. Yeah, and guy that works here.
Guy who works here. Yeah, if you can build a robot and like rename it, guy who works here. I want to see. Like, I want to see your robot builds with guy who works here, or just if you can rename something, that would be amazing.
Margaret's turnips.
Margaret hates turnips. old Grandpappy Wilson.
So I'm curious if you can join this group and like what the faction means, or if this is just like, hey, you're like loosely affiliated with us and here's some bounties. It seems like that bounty hunting is also something that you could do, which is I think Fallout 3 you had bounty hunting.
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely some side quests in like New Vegas that were like similar to that.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah, but like, I don't know that maybe you can't join the Rangers. Maybe you can. Maybe they're a faction like the Brotherhood or something like that. You know, like the Railroad in Fallout 4 or whatever. Mm-hmm. More likely, I would guess that you don't full out join them so much as you have kind of an in, especially if you have Sam with you, and you get some side quests and things that happen in this part of, you know, this planet or this part of this neighborhood of planets. Maybe there's some other stuff going on beyond just the planet. But I think for thematic reasons, probably a lot of the stuff that happens here with the Rangers happens just on the planet. Like you go into town, you get your quest. They're like, go hunt down evil Jimmy Dickens. He's on the other side of the planet. You fly over to the other side of the planet. You get out. You find evil Jimmy Dickens in the middle of whatever he's doing.
Well, I'm curious if like Rangers are like a thing that you'll see. So like on Akila City, like you see Rangers about, but like if they're a part of the Freestar Collective and they're the Freestar Rangers, I mean, that would mean that they could show up on any Freestar planet. So like you're walking around Neon where it's like super cyberpunk. And then you got this guy there. It's like, well, Humpty Dumpty's here. And I'm going to shoot myself, evil Jimmy Dickens, for stealing all that rice.
What's Humpty Dumpty? Wait, what?
What's his name?
He's Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah, he's Humpty Dumpty. Yes. Sheriff Humpty Dumpty.
I'm Sheriff Humpty Dumpty from Akila City. Hey, look at you with all your cyber gear. Well, I got my pistol and I'm here to bring in evil Jimmy Dickens because he lost my planet. I'm the law around these parts. My name's Humpty Dumpty.
These scenarios are quite good.
Oh, man. Oh, what would be even crazier is if we actually nail a character name that's already in the game. And everyone's going to be like, how did you know evil Jimmy Dickens was going to be in the game? And we're like,
killed 24 people, stole their rice, you know?
Totally just guessed. If anybody from Bethesda is listening, BGS friends, if you are still adding other NPCs in the game, which I don't think you're doing right now, you're probably just polishing at this point. Just add in an evil Jimmy Dickens, just one little side quest. It doesn't have to be complex. Just little evil Jimmy Dickens is like stole a space cow. You fly over and he's just like lost in the desert. And like the scenario is that he's not really evil. He just got lost and a cow followed him into the desert. And you got to bring him back.
His first name is Evil. Yeah.
And his first name happens to be Evil. Like Evil Knievel, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
It's just bad luck.
He's just unlucky. He's not really a bad guy.
Right.
I would love that side quest. That would be amazing. All right. So any other thoughts on this?
No, I think it'll be interesting to see how the Freestar Rangers interact with the main character, and how that will spread over not just Akila City, but other planets within the Freestar Collective.
Right. So do we want to talk a little bit more about the nature of like space westerns and what fits into space western and what doesn't, like what makes it a space western, because it's not just like desert planets and guys wearing funny hats with trench coats or whatever.
Right. They've talked a good amount about NASA punk and what that is, because that seems like that's the main inspiration for United Colonies. It's all NASA punk. Like that's like their original, idea for that kind of stuff.
Right.
The space western genre is pretty common in a lot of media, especially sci-fi media, because of the unsettled nature of planets. It seems like, when you talk about the frontier, the original, American frontier was unsettled and dangerous and had weird animals, and people thought that there were like giant sloths living there, or like there was a mammoth that was just like hanging out, and like people made up stories and that kind of stuff,
and like even just giant bears or right
that kind of stuff. And it was harsh. Like they got out there and it was like, oh, okay, this isn't like mystical. This is just like really hard to do. And I think settling on an unknown planet is probably the same. Haven't done it myself, but I would imagine so. So I think that's a common trope that, movies like Star Wars, Firefly, Firefly probably the most is a space western,
right? Even The Expanse does a little bit of that when it comes to the settling of places that are far away and how difficult life is on places like that. But then also there's the element of everything so far apart. So in the Old West, it's not like we had highway systems where you could travel for a day and get across the country. So like if somebody was over in Nevada, it would take you weeks to get out there, and it would be a very dangerous trip in order to do so. So seeing that in this kind of perspective, you've got space travel, but it's not instantaneous and things are far apart. And like you were saying earlier, there aren't marshals everywhere. It's not like there are lawmen out there able to just make sure that law and order is followed everywhere you go. So there's a lot of lawlessness and a lot of danger in just traversing from one place to another place.
And that's why you get this, like Star Wars, often they have if you know Star Wars, they have like their inner planets and then they have the outer rim. Yeah. And the outer rim is pretty much where all of Star Wars takes place, outside of, some of the stuff from the prequels. But the outer rim is where everything is happening because nobody quite knows what's going on there. You never know what you're like quite getting into. Everything's kind of, this person has a presence there. The government has a presence there. These evil people have a presence, but it all kind of like forms together over that because that feels like that's the available space that people are occupying.
Right. The Empire or the Federation. Are they a federation when everything's good?
They're the Republic.
The Republic, that's what they are. Yeah. But either way, they don't have enough resources to cover every system. And so the Outer Rim is kind of this place. And you see it in The Mandalorian, in the last season, The Mandalorian, where he's talking to the X-Wing pilot. And he's like, yeah, we don't have enough resources to really do that. And he's like, well, I need your help. And he's like, it's not really. I mean, we got a lot of other things going on, buddy.
Right, because like, and those are the kinds of stories you can tell. Like, you can't tell. It's harder to tell about a bunch of bank robbers that live in like a really cozy town in like a really nice area from like and they have their local catering business that they all like. That's harder to tell than be like, oh, they live in this like forgotten about city and they're racing between these areas. Like,
the trials of suburbia on a planet that has socialized medicine, a 0.1% jobless rate. Like everything's like perfect. Everybody can live their lives. Everybody's happy. Yeah, that makes for great stories. Awesome. Right.
Yes. Everyone woke up this morning feeling great, and we went to bed feeling great.
Everybody exercises every day. They eat lots of vegetables. Nobody smokes. Like this place everyone's feeling real good.
Right. So I'm curious how that is going to interplay with other kind of like genres that they're pulling from, like the cyberpunk, the NASA punk, all the other punks, CM punk. All those punkers that are out there.
All the punks. Yeah, I think we're going to see a diversity of different ways things work in different places. But in general, there's going to be this, like we mentioned with New Atlantis, there's going to be, it seems like a very safe, like well organized place, but there's going to be an underbelly of people who are not happy with the way things are going, or there's going to be always some of that, right? There has to be that friction. That's part of what makes these stories fun. So I think we'll see a little bit of that space Western stuff coming out as well. I think if anything, we'll probably see the most space Western stuff as opposed to anything else. The whole dangerous to travel, far places to go, not a lot of, law out in most of the galaxy, like that kind of stuff go on the most. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I think that's about it. That's all we really know about Akila City so far. But absolutely stay tuned, because we will be revisiting this topic and some of the other topics we've been doing once the game is out, so that we can see how right or wrong we're about all of these things. Because so far we're just putting pieces together. We're just playing detective, but eventually we'll actually get the info. So it'll be fun to see. I mean, obviously we're right about everything all the time, but
yeah. If we're right about everything, then you owe us a pizza. I don't know who you specifically are, but I'll find you.
Dave, we had probably 1,000 people tune into the audio episodes that we put out over the last few weeks.
Nice.
That would be a lot of pizzas. I'm not sure I can consume 1,000 pizzas. Plus, I would expect that the number of people listening to shows like this is going to go up when the game comes out. So
listen, you need to believe in yourself, and maybe you should also think about the barter economy that you're going to have in Starfield, and maybe you should trade those for some turnips.
I could trade pizza for turnips, but then that would just be way too many turnips. Also, you have to eat pizza within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, it's not hot anymore. And then you could put it in the fridge, but then that's only good for a few days.
And turnips keep.
Turnips are much better for long term. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. Dave and I are so glad you're here and that you put up with our silliness. And we look forward to seeing you next time. This podcast, by the way, is available on all sorts of different platforms. If you want to listen to it, like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you can also watch this on the Robots Radio YouTube channel. So if you are watching on there, we would love a subscribe so you can come back and get more stuff. And on top of this, I will be posting a lot more information on Twitter. I will be doing, and Dave may be doing, some other little side videos. I put out one this last week about the whole DLSS FSR thing. So that's not going out on the podcast feed, but it's up on my YouTube channel, the Robots Radio YouTube channel, if you want to go check that out. And lots of controversy around that decision. So interesting stuff. Dave, do you have anything else you want to share before we head out?
I do my regular Fallout TTRPG podcast that goes on weekly. That's called Rad Rolls. You can check that out on all the podcast services. Come stop by, try it out. There's a bunch of different places to pick up and do it. And if you like it, come listen to a few stories. We got a lot of fun. We got a lot of laughs. And we got a lot of lore.
There you go. And you can even watch them on YouTube. You guys have a YouTube channel where you can see their faces.
My faces. My lips move around and smack wildly while I talk.
That's weird. Cool. My stuff is all over the place. Robotsradio.net for all a bunch of shows and stuff. And thanks for tuning in. You guys know the deal. We'll be back next week. Thanks for being here. See you all later.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this show.
Did you know that parodies are copyright protected?
Tell a friend and review
on iTunes
or other services. Dave and Tom excited for Starfield. Let's all speculate and wear no shoes.
Hey, why aren't we wearing any shoes?
Because shoes rhymes with iTunes, and that's the best I could think of.